Hello, this is Michael Hexter. Welcome to my Politics 2100 video cast here on YouTube. So this episode I'm calling Homage and Critique of Bernie Sanders from a parentheses left MMT perspective. So left in parentheses. So this is a video that I've thought about, or a piece of content that I've thought about on and off for a while. And I've decided to take the risk of, I don't know how much risk per se, but I feel like there is some risk in criticizing someone I support a great deal, and I've done a lot of work, political work for, and donated to his campaigns. I'm talking about Bernie Sanders, and he is he is an inspiration for many people who have politics similar to mine, and he has also inspired many of the most promising politicians, younger politicians on the scene currently in Congress, and also in other bodies and other political bodies around the country. And I could say, so this is a part of the homage in a way, and he has been a fighter for 50 years, 60 years for justice, and before entering electoral politics, he was an activist in the 1960s and for civil rights and against the war, the Vietnam War. So he is someone who has had a remarkable career, showing courage, showing practical understanding of many political issues, and also taking political risks, but always, or often, most often, for with an eye to helping ordinary people in the United States. And he calls himself a democratic socialist, and he is, I would say, more a social democrat with no, I'm saying that with no disrespect or no, I think that's he's pushing for a program of similar to what was discontinued, or which ended within the 1940s, when the Democratic Party sort of abandoned the push for a more inclusive Green New Deal. New Deal. I'm sorry, and the four freedoms, for instance, that Roosevelt talked about are it's kind of what Bernie Sanders has been pushing for many years, and also using the model of quite accessible models of Canadian and European social democracy to point out the shortcomings of the U.S. political system, and creating, or helping create political momentum for change in a positive direction, in the left direction. So anyway, so I think that is the homage I'm going to pay to him. And there could be many more homages that people could offer, but I want to also critique him, and I'm using a recent interview that Chris Hayes did with him about the budget reconciliation package. And Chris Hayes is an MSNBC host who is a thoughtful journalist and commentator, and is sympathetic to progressive politicians and politics. And it was not really much new news in that, except, so anyway, I'll put a link in the description box. So, but in this interview, as usual, and it's not unexpected, Bernie calls for taxing the rich as a way, as an entry point to, or a sine qua non, or a requirement for spending, for federal spending, and he portrays himself as obligated to pay for every penny he proposes in he is largely responsible for the $3.5 trillion package. I mean, with others, but it's partly his efforts that have even gotten this to the table. So in a way, that's still an homage to his work to point that out and saying that he's been leading on at least creating the bill of spending, the list of positive, some of them climate focused, some of them and some of them social spending priorities that people have had, and you know, trying to realize them within this reconciliation package. So, but anyway, in this interview, Chris Hayes almost gives him, who is aware, I think, of MMT and gave Bernie the opportunity in the interview to say, hey, look, you know, you don't have to do all this pay for stuff. You don't have to be constantly harping on the taxation of the billionaire class or of the rich to be the entry point for spending. So he was giving Bernie a pass, but Bernie is so committed and so focused on this formula of saying we must tax the rich, we must, in order then to spend. So in other words, to get the money, we need to spend, we need to tax it away from rich people or from corporations. And this is something on Twitter or in other media, you know, you often hear from him, and he is as focused on tax policy as he is on spending, and he's not alone. I mean, there's Robert Reich, there's Warren Gunnels, who works closely with Bernie Sanders. You know, there are others who, I mean, the list can go on, of progressives who are very, very focused on taxation as an entry point to then spend. And as I was discussing in the last video, and also has been discussed many times by other people, and I've also, you know, written about it for the last decade or so, this model of the federal government spending is erroneous, is wrong, and is also, it's not just wrong in some sort of academic way that I'm sort of trying to score points, that I know the truth and he doesn't or something. It actually, it's limiting, and it places, and it disempowers, and I think this is a point that isn't clearly enough made by people who make this point, make a similar point, that it disempowers the left, including followers of Bernie Sanders, including Bernie Sanders himself, to continually yoke themselves to this tax the rich and then we'll spend the money, okay? Because I touched upon it in the other video, and I will continue to hammer on this. This limits the imagination and the of the left to create programs that actually address real issues. It stops the planning or the projection of what needs to happen in society via government policy. You know, that can be more pricier or involve more money than the amount of money that you can tax away at any given moment, or not can, but you could, you know, levy huge taxes, you know, to create that amount of money. But the amount of money that also politically is possible, and the forefronting of the taxation creates an intransigence by the part of some of the most powerful people in our society toward the spending, which you don't have to fight that battle with that intensity at that point when you are creating this program. So that this is one way, is you're disempowering the left. So the other way, or there may be more than two ways, the other way that you're disempowering the left is that you are taking a junior position with regard to the power of the purse than the military-industrial complex, and then Wall Street banks, and then the rich, and so forth and so on. They do not tie themselves to the every dollar that I spend or I give away in tax rebates or tax cuts has to be paid for by some other. So in order that there's zero deficit or zero bond issue, which is currently the practice of the U.S. government to issue bonds when a deficit is achieved, and so anyway, and this is something that Hayes mentions in his interview, that why don't you just do that and for this package. So, but anyway, this he didn't mention the point I'm making, but just the fact that you could just put it on, issue some bonds, and then you wouldn't have to worry about all the pay-fors. And so, in other words, run a deficit. So anyway, this puts progressives on a lower step in relationship to the power of the purse than those who can say cavalierly, including people like Donald Trump, including George W. Bush, and just running up the tab with regard to wars, and with regard to tax cuts, or whatever it is or bailouts of Wall Street, so or other industries. Anyway, so it puts the people on the ground, the American people, on a lower level, a lower priority in terms of this power that the government has to issue money without collecting it first. Okay, and so this is modern money theory, among other things, or this is the discovery of modern money theory, and what it points out about currency issuing governments like the U.S. federal government, and the British government, and the Australian government, and the Japanese government, and a whole host of other governments or institutions throughout the world, even the European Central Bank, which is the euro issuer, so which is not attached to a single nation state, but to the sort of the joint eurozone area. So anyway, so these institutions or entities can issue this money, and politicians. The point that I'm making, and it's certainly from a left MMT perspective, or even MMT suggests this, and so often people of the left gravitate toward it, though there could be a centrist MMT perspective, and it's not, it doesn't have necessarily a left political orientation, but anyway, are saying, why not democratize and use this power of the purse? So we're doing it for the broadest possible amount of people, or also for the future viability of our species. Okay, so anyway, so this, so I'm finding at least two disempowering aspects to Sanders and others. He's not the only one who does this. Robert Reich is big on it as well, and just two prominent names in the left of center public sphere, and also in the case of Sanders within the government itself. So the Congress. Anyway, so, and I think, I mean, speculatively, and just in terms of the impression that he and others, including Reich, give, is that there is a facet or an attraction to the virtue signaling that goes on when you say I'm paying for everything, I'm taxing away, and also there's an element of I'll do another video about this. Sort of a tit for tat, or I'm getting from the rich are bad, or for being so rich, and I am punishing them for being so rich or punishing for them for not paying their fair share. Okay, so that's another way to put it. I don't want to one way or the other. In other words, the politician am because of the imbalance of the tax system, and it is unfair, and it should be balanced and changed. And I said that in my video on tax the rich, yes, but. So we have an unfair tax system, and it should be made fair. And you could create bills that address that, and create a politics that makes our society more egalitarian and less unequal in terms of money, in terms of wealth, by campaigning on that specifically, but not on the false premise that you needed to pay for programs. Not only just false, but disempowering premise, and imagination undermining premise. So anyway, so I think that there's this idea that one is being particularly virtuous, that we on the left need to be so virtuous and so in terms of pay-fors, and that we really need to show that we're not a tax and spend social democrat or democratic socialists, or whatever, that we're not wantonly spending money, that somehow we're so prudent, that we're more prudent than the capitalists, so to speak, in our use of money, and then therefore we're particularly good people, and this is the virtue signal part, and then also this other aspect of we're enforcing justice by so it's a combination of a justice and a virtue signal that still, and it's very, very attractive to many, and it's also very popular. So I also don't want to. It's good politics to tax rich people more. So in fact, that may be some of the more popular aspects of this package, is that the tax rich people more. But I think that one could make a more honest case, and also a more empowering case for doing that. So not to ignore the desire that people have to see rich people pay, at least be on the same playing field in terms of paying taxes, and maybe make them less rich, so they don't continue to buy our politicians and become hyper monopolies, or just monopoly in terms of just totally concentrate. I mean, there's other issues related to antitrust there, and a bunch of different things. But so I understand it's a popular issue, but still it needs to, it's subtle. Okay, the point I'm making is subtle, but it's realistic, and also I think potentially even more politically effective. And I need to probably sketch out the case for why being realistic about the power of the purse and its capacity to spend without taxation, dollar for dollar tax revenue, okay? Also for creating tax justice, creating a fair taxation system, reducing outrageous fortunes, and we need to create a language of saying how outrageously large these fortunes are. They are not virtuous. It's not because of the virtues of Jeff Bezos, or Mark Zuckerberg, that they are, centibillionaires, okay? And so anyway, so there would need to be a change in the discourse that, Bernie has been participating in, that he's aware of. He's a pioneer in some ways in certain areas of it. He's a strong warrior in some of these areas, but he's making a ball of different ideas that are ultimately will pull down some of his cause, or certainly dims the possibility, if people follow him too closely, dims the possibility for us to really address our, among other things, the climate crisis. The climate crisis definitely, and also other issues, by balling up tax justice and spending, needed spending. So anyway, so I'm going to stop here. I'm quite sure many of you will have some comments about this, and or maybe. And also, if you like this video, please like it. If you are liking the content here on Politics 2100, please subscribe. And so I hope to see you in the next video.